I'm not the Jay I used to be. That's why. The old Jay is dead.
Jaden Edward Ivey, born February 13th, 2002. Welcome to Chapter 1, a series about players whose careers are still being written, but the warning signs have already started. Episode 3 brings us to Jaden Ivey, and his story may be the saddest of all. Jaden Ivey didn't lose confidence in his game, he lost it in the space between who he was and who he feels like now. When he said the old J.I. is dead, it didn't sound like frustration from a bad season. It sounded like a young player grieving the version of himself that played without hesitation, without thinking, and without pain. The speed, the burst, the certainty, all the things that made his future feel obvious suddenly feel distant. And for the first time in his career, Jaden Ivey isn't chasing stardom, he's trying to refine himself. This is Chapter 1. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Jaden Ivey, a 6'4" combo guard from South Bend, Indiana, emerged as one of the most electric backcourt prospects in the country while carrying deep basketball roots. His mother was a standout at Notre Dame and later became the program's head coach, and that environment helped shape his early feel for the game. At Marion High School, he developed a reputation as a relentless downhill attacker, using elite end-to-end speed and body control to separate from defenders, while steadily improving as a perimeter shooter. Initially viewed as a 3-star recruit, his stock climbed as his athleticism and scoring ability translated against stronger competition, eventually earning 4-star status and a commitment to Purdue. His freshman season showed flashes in a limited role, but his sophomore year turned him into one of the most feared guards in college basketball. He averaged 17.3 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 3.1 assists, earning consensus second-team All-America honors and first-team All-Big Ten. He led Purdue to a #1 ranking during the season and became known for his transition pressure, late clock shot creation, and kind of explosive first step that forced defenses to collapse. NBA scouts viewed him as a modern, pace-changing guard who could bend defenses with speed and play either on or off the ball. When he declared for the 2002 NBA draft, he was widely projected as a top 5 pick and was selected 5th overall by the Detroit Pistons as a centerpiece for their rebuild alongside Cade Cunningham. Undergoing arthroscopic knee surgery. Jaden Ivey's first 2 seasons were about constant movement, not just his speed, but his development. As a rookie, he was given the freedom to play through mistakes, learn with the ball in his hands, and build confidence by attacking every night. By his second year, the game had slowed down. The drives were more controlled, the reads were cleaner, and the chemistry with Cade Cunningham started to make sense. He didn't have to be the primary engine, he just had to be the pressure next to it. Then came the start of Season 3, and for the first time it felt like everything was lining up. He was playing with pace, getting downhill without hesitation, and impacting the game before the defense could set up. With Cade Cunningham dealing with injuries, there were real stretches where Ivey wasn't just a secondary option, he was the one pushing the offense and the one creating the tempo. The confidence matched the athleticism and the role was clear. It looked like the version of him Detroit had been waiting to fully lean into. And then the collision with Cole Anthony happened January 1st, 2025 that led to him being sidelined the rest of the season. The play itself didn't look like a career-altering moment in real time, but that was the result. The fibula injury happened, then arthroscopic knee surgery later that year in the preseason, and for the first time since entering the league, his development stopped instead of continuing forward. When he returned, the season had moved on without him. The ball was in different hands, the rhythm was different, and the automatic burst that let him live in the paint had to be rediscovered instead of relied on. That's the part that connects to what he's saying now. Before the injury, his game was built on reaction, confidence, and athleticism. After it, there were possessions where he had to think about the move instead of just making it. The role he had been growing into was no longer waiting for him in the same way, and for a player whose entire identity was tied to how freely and how fast he played, that moment didn't just interrupt his season, it interrupted the version of himself he was becoming. The trade. By the time Jaden Ivey got back on the floor, the season and the organization had already started moving in a different direction. The offense was more firmly in Cade Cunningham's hands. As he became a superstar, the rotations got tighter, and the freedom that once defied Ivey's development wasn't there in the same way. Early in his career, he was allowed to play through mistakes because he was part of the long-term plan. Now, every possession had context, every touch had a purpose, and for a young player trying to regain rhythm after time away, that's a different environment. Then he was traded to Chicago. The trade made that shift official. In Detroit, even when things weren't perfect, he was growing inside a system that was built to figure him out. The mistakes, the inconsistency, the flashes, all of it was part of a timeline that included him. After the move, he wasn't stepping into a situation that needed him to become something. He was stepping into one that needed him to fit immediately. That's a hard place for a young guard whose best basketball comes from playing free and fast. You could see it in how he played. The attacks were more calculated, the pullbacks came earlier, and the possessions where he would have forced the issue before became swing passes and resets. Not because he lost the ability, but because he was learning in real time what was expected of him on a team that didn't draft him and didn't spend 2 years developing around him. That's the mental part people don't always see. In Detroit, his growth was assumed. After the trade, it had to be proven. So now he's dealing with 2 adjustments at once and looking like he's not comfortable at all, coming back from an injury that interrupted his momentum and trying to establish himself in a role that isn't built around his strengths in a crowded backcourt. For the first time in his career, he isn't just playing to improve, he's playing to belong. Struggling mentally to deal with the new him and the trade. This is the part of Jaden Ivey's career where the game becomes less about ability and more about identity. Before the trade, his confidence came from knowing exactly who he was on the floor, the guard who could get downhill whenever he wanted, the one who changed the pace the moment he touched the ball. Now he's adjusting to the version of himself that doesn't feel as automatic in a situation that isn't built around his development, and that combination shows up mentally before it shows up anywhere else. That's why his words carried so much weight. When he said, "I've been dealing with knee soreness, I'm not the J.I. I used to be, the old J.I. is dead," it wasn't a complaint, it was acknowledgement. He's not talking about a stat line or rotation spot, he's talking about the separation between the player he remembers being and the one he's trying to trust right now. And the next part of what he says explains how he's dealing with it. I'm alive in Christ no matter what the basketball setting is, no matter how many DNPs, how many points I score, those things are a temporary thing. Jesus is eternal. That's a 22-year-old player redefining himself in real time, but also defeated mentally. When the game stops giving you the same validation it once did, you either fight that reality or you search for something that isn't tied to performance. In Detroit, his growth was assumed. After the trade, every opportunity had to be earned while he was still trying to regain rhythm in his own body. That's a different kind of pressure for a player whose best basketball has always come from playing free. So this isn't about fitting into a new team or coming back from an injury. It's about learning how to compete, develop, and stay confident while letting go of the version of himself that got him there. And for the first time in his career, his biggest adjustment isn't physical, it's internal. All in all, I like Jaden Ivey, but I also think he's in an important moment in his career where he seems more broken than anyone could have imagined from a player that went through a big injury and a trade. His statements are a real concern for the Bulls, showing that mentally his struggles are affecting him more than they could wish it would. I do understand how difficult it must be to go from the explosive player he was just a year or so ago, with all the potential in the world, to having to become a player he never was in his life. But to whom much is given, much is required. Jaden still has the opportunity to play the game he loves in a position where he could compete for the lead guard role on the Bulls. He has to get his mind right now though, or these issues can threaten to carry over to the next chapter in his career. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth in this chapter is being stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.